to startups is that go for the gold, right? You're not going to want to bring on somebody who, hasn't necessarily done it before. And you're crossing your fingers that they're going to figure it out because they might seem smart and they might be brilliant, but it's really hard to figure it out on the job. So if you're investing in marketing and it's time for you to invest in marketing, find someone who's done it before successfully and hire that person. But overall, instead of hiring quantity of people and having a very large department of people who are not necessarily super experienced in what you're looking for them to do and thinking that you can grow them, it's probably not the right strategy for a startup. What you really want to do is hire somebody who's done it before so that they can do it successfully for you.
Hi, welcome to another episode of the Go Slow to Grow Fast podcast brought to you by Mercury. I'm your host, Heath Butler, and today we have my friend and Mercury CMO, Melissa Turowsky. Melissa, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Heath. It's amazing to be here.
Thank you. I'm excited because today we're going to be talking about the evolution of marketing and how this evolution is forcing venture-backed startups to reevaluate how they think about the marketing function, customer acquisition, and the talent required to achieve their business goals. So I'm excited you're here to talk to me about this. We're going to have some fun.
Yeah, let's do it.
So you have a very interesting background, right? You've got, I kind of call it a tale of two lives, similar to me. You've kind of spent a lot of time in corporate, working at a billion-dollar company, but then also you're an entrepreneur, had your own business, so you know what it's like to be lonely on an island.
Sure do.
So why don't you tell us about it? Kind of go back in history and let's go back in a time capsule and tell us a little bit about what brought you here to Mercury.
Yeah, so it all started in the early aughts up in New York. Started my career on Madison Avenue working for an ad agency where I worked on a variety of different companies ranging from pharmaceuticals to GMC pickup trucks and a whole host of others.
Wow.
After that, I spent some time at Macy's as an art director, more on the creative side. Okay. Following that gig, I went into a mid-sized publicly traded tech company where they had just gone through a whole bunch of M&A. So they brought me on to help with the marketing department, build it up, help rebrand everything, tell the story. It was a legal tech company with a bunch of different SaaS products in addition to some services. Then I had my first child, during which point I realized I had no idea what I was doing as a parent, which inspired me to start my own business, which was a platform where expecting and new parents can find service providers.
Okay, so it was related.
It was totally related, yes. And service providers could advertise themselves and create profiles. So it was kind of an early stage femtech business. In the middle of that, I relocated to Houston with my family. Through the startup I had founded, I became connected to the local Houston venture capital community, connected with Blair and Dan, and began to, develop those relationships. Unfortunately, my startup did not work out, but the silver lining was that I was plugged into this amazing ecosystem, started consulting as a fractional CMO to a bunch of different companies that were backed by different PE and VC funds. Ultimately, Mercury said, hey, can you just help our companies out? And then, hey, can you be our CMO? And that's how I got here.
Awesome. Really, really interesting. It's the typical situation, though. You see a problem, you think, hey, everybody else has this problem.
Yep.
Maybe there's something here. And similar to me, not all the ventures I started were successful, but you learn something from them and it actually fuels your journey and helps you take that next step in the journey. And you always can go back and pull from those lessons. So I'm sure a lot of that helped you as you work with our portfolio companies now.
100%. I actually read a fascinating book called Range, and it talks about that, how when you've had unique experiences throughout your career, you come at things with a different perspective and can pull from all of them. So I think it's been great.
So all of those experiences as an operator definitely added value to your ability to now help venture-backed founders or the head of marketing navigate their way through the journey that they're trying to achieve?
Yeah. The way I kind of describe myself to founders and heads of marketing is that I'm a marketing therapist. I think that sometimes when you're in one of these portfolio companies that we've invested in, it can sometimes feel like a lonely place as the founder or even as like the head of marketing.
Yes.
It's like generally a smaller team, right? You're still scaling. You are working really hard to grow your business. And it's really helpful. What I found was super helpful to be able to have somebody who's not necessarily in the day-to-day with you to talk to bounce ideas off of.
A sounding board.
A sounding board. So, I think it's that empathy and just kind of understanding.
So that's really, really helpful. It makes me think about what's happened with marketing over the last, 20 years or so, right? This marketing evolution that we want to talk about. 50 years ago, businesses learned what was going on in the market from the salesperson that came in the door and showed them collateral, right? Showed them material that they have. Now those business owners can go on the web. So it kind of seems like things have really evolved over the last 20 years with marketing and how it's gotten involved, much more involved in sales than it was, 50 years ago. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, listen, I think that's a really good point. If you think about it today, any consumer, whether they are a business or an individual, when they're starting that buyer journey, oftentimes the first thing that they're doing is they're just going online and they're poking around and they're searching and they're asking questions. So they've begun that educational process themselves, independent of that company representative, that salesperson. So I think that's where content marketing comes into play, where it's just so critical. And oftentimes when I'm meeting with portfolio companies and we're kind of reviewing their department and their plan and their goals, one of the first things that I'm really looking at is what their content strategy is, because it's like not
it's like
super
first impression, right?
First impression and a super easy way once you build it up to get people educated on your product and to get them comfortable with what you're offering and to explain to them how your company will solve their problem. And it's just writing articles, right? It's writing long form articles that can be picked up by search engines so that when someone's online and searching for answers for a big problem that they have, your solution comes up.
Yeah. And the other thing is this everything being digital, you can track it, right? And now you can get the feedback loop you need to give product input about what's working, what's not working.
Yep. Feedback loops. Critical. So another thing when I'm looking at marketing departments within our portfolio companies is I'm very sensitive to whether or not that marketing department is feeling siloed from the rest of the company. It's just sometimes happens. I'm not sure why, but they end up kind of on an island and, they're not getting great feedback and interaction with sales, or maybe they're not really interacting with product. And it really needs to be a whole company feedback loop where everyone's communicating. Customer success needs to be in there because they're all getting such important information and they need to share it with each other so that they can, do their best in communicating what their product does, right? And no marketing strategy should ever be set in stone, and that's how you're able to evolve it.
No, that's really helpful, and I think that it makes me also think about not that we don't need salespeople, but in a lot of cases, the marketing department has pushed so far forward that the salesperson's role isn't the same. The marketing department's kind of driving the lead through to like an MQL and kind of kicking it over. So they're doing some of the sales function. How do you think that interaction between sales and marketing has continued to evolve in this day and age?
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, I guess historically, marketing in large part, it was, just generally branding, creating brand awareness. I'll tell you, if I'm speaking to a marketing department and it's a very early stage company and that's what they're telling me they're focused on, like red flags are going off because nowadays,
Right.
especially for a SaaS company, right? A B2B SaaS company, that marketing department is supposed to be generating leads and they are supposed to be tightly linked with the sales department, like best friends with the sales department. And in some ways it's like they're overlapping, right? It's like those teams should be, they're separate, but they are connected.
Yeah. So I know at Mercury, we spend a lot of time talking about talent, right? And the talent requirements in each department. How do talent requirements changed in marketing, over the years in your experiences?
Yeah. I think that from a startup perspective, where we're at with the growth of SaaS businesses, there's some really phenomenal marketing talent out there. So my advice to startups is that go for the gold. Right? You're not going to want to bring on somebody who, hasn't necessarily done it before. And you're crossing your fingers that they're going to figure it out because they might seem smart and they might be brilliant, but it's really hard to figure it out on the job. So if you're investing in marketing and it's time for you to invest in marketing, find someone who's done it before successfully and hire that person.
Even if you're hiring them on a fractional basis, right?
Even if you're hiring them on a fractional basis. And that's a great point, Heath. That might be the solution for your budget. But overall, instead of hiring quantity of people and having a very large department of people who are not necessarily super experienced in what you're looking for them to do and thinking that you can grow them, it's probably not the right strategy for a startup. What you really want to do is hire somebody who's done it before so that they can do it successfully for you.
Yeah, that's a really good point. That applies to all departments, right?
That applies to all departments.
Yeah.
Yes.
And especially in this day and age, they need to understand data and platforms and the tooling, right? There's so much tooling that goes into marketing departments these days. So that's very important. When you think about how the tooling fits in with process and all, it's really hard to find someone like you said and train them up. Why do you think? Because I know you've been in marketing departments where our portfolio companies and others where people consistently hire someone junior. Do you think it's because of the price point? Do you think the person sells them? Like how do founders usually get there where they end up hiring the wrong talent?
I think perhaps it's when they hire that talent, their needs might be different from after, when they accept funding from an investor like Mercury or any other venture fund, there's growth expectations. So when you initially hire your first marketer, you may have hired it before those expectations were in place, and it might just be the wrong person for that next phase for your company. Or, you might not necessarily know, you might not have hired a marketing person before and you don't know what to look for. So I think, that's why we at Mercury, we're super, interested in helping. And I interview tons of people for our portfolio companies and help them find the people that are best for them. So hopefully they are hiring the right person the first time.
Yeah, no, that's definitely important. So let's switch our focus to CAC, right? Because all of the companies, right? They've got to drive leads, and there's different ways to drive leads, right? So just in general, when you are thinking about managing cost, acquisition costs, how do you approach that with venture-backed companies that need to do it efficiently?
Yeah. So this answer might surprise people because it's not necessarily falling exactly in the lap of marketing. It falls on sales. Okay. So before anybody starts pouring fuel into their marketing department, right? Spending cash, increasing headcount, trying new things, right? Throwing money at digital ads. Like, you need to know what your strategy is. And that strategy has to come from sales.
Okay.
So ultimately, you have to be super confident as a CEO that your sales team has figured out how to sell your product. What does that mean? Who is your ICP?
What's ICP?
ICP is ideal customer profile. That means who loves you, right? So if tomorrow you looked at all your customers and said, sorry guys, we're taking away our product from you, who would be crying? That's your ICP.
Yep.
So typically the ICP is developed by product marketing, which is actually different from a traditional marketing department. Product marketing kind of sits at the center of the company, right? And they help you figure out research on your competition. They help you figure out how to talk about your product. They do voice of customer, and they really refine your ICP. To be honest, Heath, it's a very big topic. We should probably have a second follow-up on the whole product marketing
I love it.
framework.
I love it.
But definitely just wanted to touch on it a little bit in this conversation. So once sales has kind of figured out the sales motion, right? Who they're targeting, how to pitch it, what they're saying, and they figured out that secret sauce, then it's time to pour the fuel into marketing so that marketing can take what sales has built and amplify it and grow it. And that's how you're really going to manage your CAC.
Oh man, that's really, really good. And it brings to mind that there's just all of this noise in marketing, right? With all of the advertising.
There's so much noise.
Yeah, I think I saw a stat that said recently that said we see thousands of marketing messages a day, right? So it's sort of like, how do you get my attention? How do you get your attention in all of that? And founders need to understand that they've got to navigate all of that noise to find signal. So how should founders find signal through all this noise?
So that's a wonderful question. As you mentioned, there is so much information out there, right? There's so many images. There's so many outlets. I think it sounds kind of cliche, right? But it's that whole like vitamin versus painkiller analogy where you want to be the painkiller, not the vitamin. Vitamins, they're great. They're nice to have. You buy them, you forget to take them after a while, your life doesn't change. Painkillers, not such a nice to have. You need them because you're experiencing something super painful and you want that pain to go away. You want your company to be the painkiller, right? So number one, if you're a painkiller, it's much easier to cut through the noise because you're truly solving a problem for your customer. The other thing is if you really have kind of refined your sales process, know your ICP, and have a great strategy, then you know exactly who you want to talk to and what messaging is going to be. And that will help you be super laser focused in who you're talking to and what you're saying in a very effective way that inherently is not noisy and stands out.
No, that's really good. I think this notion of being the painkiller, that's really, really good. It makes me think about the importance of taking the data. Earlier, you talked about feedback loops, right? How do you take that data to improve your go-to-market, right? And what have you seen there? What can you help entrepreneurs learn about leveraging the data that they're getting from what's going on in marketing?
Yes. So this kind of goes back to that question about what has changed in marketing over the past, couple decades, right? Data, right? Like if you're going back a few decades, it was very hard to track real ROI on ad spends for companies. Nowadays, it's like extremely much like light years ahead in being able to track because it's all digital, or so much of it is digital. It's certainly not all digital. And a lot of times when I'm popping into companies and evaluating their marketing department or providing some strategy support, or even just sometimes saying hi, and we're kind of talking about what they're doing. everyone is so busy on the plan and the strategy in some companies that data is not being pulled. And sometimes it's because the right technology is not in place, right? The right tech stack isn't there. But honestly, even if you haven't gotten there yet, and even if you don't have the right tech stack, you can just do it in like a spreadsheet. You can just pull up in an Excel sheet, like a Google sheet, and you can enter it in, and you can really just begin tracking, like, where are you getting your leads from? So even if it's not digital, it's like, even if you're going to a trade show, what did you spend on the trade show? How much was, travel? And then how many leads did you get? And then how many of those leads did you close? Was it like a positive ROI? Is it something that you want to do in the future? Like, those are very baseline data expectations, that I think marketing departments should have, or CEOs should have, of their marketing team.
Well, it goes back to talent requirements too, right? You need analytical people in your marketing department,
yes,
or an analytical person in your marketing department that can do that.
Yes,
because if you're all creative and you're not analytical, then not only you may not know how to do it, but you're not going to want to do it, because we tend to shy away from the stuff that we don't know how to do or don't like to do.
100%. And I mean, you know me through Mercury, and I am like a metrics maven.
Oh yeah.
And metrics are like extremely important as a foundational tool for marketing.
Yeah, absolutely. If you don't measure it, it's hard to manage.
Yep.
So this also, I have this saying I call hack the CAC. I'm always trying to talking about we need to hack the CAC, and it's important because companies are trying to figure out how to maximize the brand, but also maximize leads coming into the funnel, right? Mm-hmm. So in this day and age, because you have all these outlets, companies' CAC is skyrocketing. And they need to sort of manage it much better. Mm-hmm. What are some of the ways that you think companies can leverage to kind of manage that?
Sure. So first of all, I think tracking everything, right?
Yep.
No part of your marketing plan should not be tracked. Everything has to be tracked, and just being kind of brutal about it, right? Listen, if you're launching a campaign, give it a chance, but track it. And if it's not working, then you have to change something. The other thing, going back to those feedback loops, is if it's not working, right? And you're spending all this money and nothing is really sticking, the problem isn't necessarily just what the marketing team is doing. Mm-hmm. There might be some other issues as far as ICP. Maybe your ICP is a little bit wrong. Maybe you need to go back and examine, who are you marketing to? Is your ICP too big? Is it like you're going after the wrong decision maker in the company? Is what you're focusing on as far as your product features? Are you pitching the wrong ones? Right? Are you there's just so many different aspects that kind of go into that baseline strategy for marketing, that if marketing just isn't working, oftentimes it's something else in the company. And, product marketing needs to be consulted, customer success. And
customer success is a big one, right? Because
team effort.
They are working with the customer on an ongoing basis. And there might be some things after 6 months or so that's really helps the marketing department understand what how to message different, right? And obviously product marketing may grab that, but it's that the CS team may have the actual information they need, right?
Yes.
This has been really good. I think as you work with heads of marketing, in our portfolio and even sometimes in the community, what are some final words you have for them that they need to be thinking about as they try to build value for the company?
Yeah. So my advice is, especially for early stage companies, when you're in such a small group, is develop a network, connect with other marketers, read a lot, right? Go to meetups, go to the Ion here in Houston where they're holding events. It makes it a little bit less lonely, right? And it gives you somebody that you can be like a sounding board, and it also just makes it more fun.
No, that's really good. That's really good. Well, Melissa, this has been great. We enjoyed it, and I thank you for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Heath. This was super fun.
Awesome.